What's up, everyone? Thrall's Mel here once again. I'm Necrotic, and I have a collection update for you. So, got a lot of stuff that I ordered with a lot of Christmas gift cards again. And again, the mail has been taking a while, but it's starting to catch up because I got some stuff in here that I ordered a little while ago that's finally starting to get here. So we've got quite a menagerie of different stuff in here. A lot of death metal again, of course, because I'm a death metal nut, but there's definitely some odds and ends in here, some weird 90s stuff. And yeah, I'm just gonna get into it. Ascended Dead, Abhorrent Manifestation. This is their debut album, came out in 2017 on Dark Descent Records, and this is a Portland-based death metal band, kind of a supergroup, I guess. A lot of these guys are in different bands, namely Ritual Necromancy, Voidceremony, and Bloodsoaked, and I believe a litany of other ones, so I guess you could call it a supergroup. Either that or it's just a pretty much, hey, I've got some free time, you want to just write an album? And that's pretty much what they did here, whether or not it's a supergroup or not. This is absolutely nuts. The vocals on here are just all over the place. The cadences are just kind of odd, but they kind of work with the frantic nature of this music in general. Drums are absolutely nuts. The guitars are chunky and distant as hell. There's a lot of incantation worship on here, especially with the atmosphere, but it's more like early incantation before they really started embracing like the death doom side. So think more like, you know, Golgotha era incantation, like pretty much the first album. Absolutely just nuts sounding. The production here is definitely very raw, and I'd say this is a challenging listen just because it's so all over the place. I would even say it kind of gets a little grindish in spots too. This is the only full length I believe they have. I don't know if they're working on anything more. Granted, all those other bands are still putting out music too, so scheduling might be difficult. I believe they have another EP or 2 EPs. I know there's definitely some demos and a compilation out there, but I do want to get my hands on those because this is a absolutely nuts listen, and I was definitely enthralled by this. So if you're looking for something murky, cavernous, and absolutely batshit crazy, I strongly recommend checking this one out. Alright, got a pair from Blasphemer here. We have Ritual Theophagy, or Theophagy, not really sure how to say that, and 6 Hour. Now this one should look familiar because this was Jam & John's #1 from last year, and these albums couldn't be more different. This one, their newest one, is just straight up death metal, very much in the vein of like Immolation, except very chuggy. Just, these guys love fierce chugs, not that Immolation doesn't, but this is kind of the mix of their odd riff structure and then just like straightforward like Cannibal Corpse riffing. Really solid stuff. I can see why this was on his list. This could have made mine, but I didn't get a chance to jam it, and I got it now, and this is absolutely killer stuff. Now this one is a little bit more towards brutal death metal. Song lengths, definitely different on here. These are way more short. This is also on a different record label. This was on Comatose Music, and they kind of lean more towards brutal death. And this is on Candlelight, which pretty much signs just a lot of different metal acts. This songs are shorter. Vocals are not as good. There's a different vocalist on here, and I really didn't get into this one as much just because there's way more dynamics on this. This is a night and day sort of thing. This band essentially retooled their sound entirely, and I think it paid off because this is absolutely killer. This is still really good. It's just very different. The production's very different. The overall feel of the album is very different, but I definitely recommend both of them because it's a cool evolution of the band. I like this one because in between the songs they have a lot of samples that add a lot of atmosphere. There's like grindhouse horror stuff or satanic panic films. You know, I think there's a part in here where a lady was talking about spitting on Christ or something like that, or the corpse of Christ, whatever. It's evil sounding. But I don't like the more burped vocals on here, whereas these are more straightforward death metal roars. And this one creates more atmosphere with the music rather than just like samples and then, you know, just repeatedly more and more brutal music. This one has a lot more variance on it. Strongly recommend both of them. Definitely check out this band. I think they have 1 or 2 other full lengths out there, and I definitely want to pick them up because I dug both of these. But yeah, definitely this one a little bit more. Either way, check them both out. This is a kick-ass band. Gorophilia, Ascend to Chaos EP. This was their first release, came out in 2011 on Dark Descent. It may have come out on a different label in Finland before it got to Dark Descent, but that's the copy I have. And this pretty much completes at least everything on CD for them for me. and this is a killer first offering. I believe I probably said it in my year-end list, because their last album in my year-end list. These guys are more Morbid Angel than Morbid Angel right now, I think. Their sound is so clearly influenced by, I would say, a lot of the Steve Tucker era stuff, namely Formulas Fatal to the Flesh and Gateways to Annihilation, for sure. I love pretty much everything about this EP. It's a nice long EP. It's over 30 minutes. All the tracks are absolutely killer on here. Great riffs, great atmosphere. There's nods to Death Doom because they are Finnish, and when I think of Finnish death metal, it's generally Death Doom. These guys definitely still embrace that, but this is just killer old school death metal. It's just absolutely fantastic. These guys don't have a bad release, and I get excited anytime I hear they're working on something new. So yeah, this is absolutely amazing, much like everything else they put out. So if you have not heard this and you already like anything else by Gorophilia, I strongly recommend this, because this is just as badass as everything else they've released. So yeah, definitely check this out. Morris Principium Est 7. This is their 7th album. Came out on AFM Records, and this is interesting because they are officially down to 2 members here. I believe all the drums are programmed, and then bass and guitars are all done by one gentleman who isn't Finnish, though this band originated in Finland, and their vocalist, who is the only original member on here. But nothing has really changed. If you've listened to Morris Principium Est before, they really still have their token, very thrashy, shreddy style of melodic death metal. The keyboards are still very present in here, but they're done in sort of an epic fashion, and they really did great on me, because keyboards are real hit or miss with me. But this was an absolutely fun listen. I love the lead work. The melodies are rich. It's still heavy. It doesn't try to be too accessible. It doesn't try to overload it with cleans. It's just riff after riff, lead after lead, hook after hook. I love their last one too. I thought it was absolutely incredible as well. This pretty much is picking up right where they left off, granted with, a different lineup. Regardless, the songwriting style and the songwriting talent really hasn't changed, and it is a flat-out banger of an album. So if you love riffy, thrashy, melodic death metal with loads of lead work, syncopated chugs, big hooks, definitely check this out. It's pretty much everything they've done throughout their career, but once again, they did it exceptionally well, and yeah, they still remain one of my favorite melodic death metal bands, just because these guys have fun with it, and that's really important. So yeah, definitely check these guys out. All right, got another pair here, this time from Voivod, and this will complete pretty much all their studio albums for me. So we have Angel Rat and Phobos, and these albums couldn't be more different. Now, Phobos was the last one they did with Eric Forrest, who took over for Snake when he left in '94, I believe. And this one is different than Negatron. Negatron I thought was a little stiff, definitely more of an industrial metal sound. This sounds more like older Voivod, granted with a different vocalist. He actually tries to do a little bit more singing on here, but his vocals are definitely more harsh than Snake's. The songs are very long on here. This album is very long. This is over an hour worth of material here. I believe the last one, Negatron, was 51 minutes. This is an hour and 6 minutes. Maybe a little bloated, some more soundscapes and sci-fi stuff on there, but I really like the guitar work in here. Piggy does an exceptional job. That guy was a hell of a guitarist. And it's really heavy. Like, this is, I think, one of the heavier releases from Voivod, just in terms of them going for like chunkier, more, aggressive sounding music, but still with loads of that strange atmosphere that they create. Now, Angel Rat, surprisingly, this is one I see get a lot of hatred, and I love it, which is kind of strange because this is one of the least metal ones they put out. This is definitely more prog rock oriented. A lot of this reminds me of like 90s era Rush, like Counterparts, Test for Echo, that sort of thing. It's kind of heavy, but for the most part, it's more about delivering hooks and melodies, and they excel at it. This is a killer album. I don't quite understand why it gets all the hate. I guess I can understand just because it's not as heavy as their previous stuff, but it's still really, really good. And I liked Outer Limits too. I thought the follow-up to this was absolutely exceptional as well. But as far as this one getting shit on a little bit, I don't get it. I think it's a really good album. I think it's just very different for them, but really, really good. Both these albums I thought were really good. I mean, I like most of Voivod's back catalog just because they are uniquely them. They do Voivod, and that's the only thing they're really concerned with. And that's the only thing they should be concerned with, because they are just sort of this fun musical oddity. If you've never heard either one of these, I strongly recommend them. I strongly recommend anything by Voivod because, again, they are Voivod. That's pretty much all I can really say. Either way, awesome albums. Definitely check them both out. Check out all their stuff. They're a lot of fun. But yeah, check these out. And check them out back to back. They're really, really, really different. Disfear, Misanthropic Generation. I've been looking for this album for a while. This is their third album, came out on Relapse Records in 2003. The first time I ever heard anything from this was on the Contaminated samplers. I believe it was the song The Horns, and I instantly loved it. This is just Swedish D-beat, hardcore punk, cross-punk, full of energy. It's got members of At the Gates and Entombed, namely Uffe Sederlund and, of course, Thomas Lindberg, who fronts a lot of different bands. Absolutely killer if you love bands like Discharge, Motorhead, Doom. Very one note. I mean, it's all D-beat. I mean, that is what they do, but Jesus Christ, they do it well. And there's so many killer just punk melodies on it. This has all the ferocity and energy the punk needs. This is kind of my favorite kind of punk here lately. I love crust punk. It's just flat out fun, but it's aggressive. It's punk for metalheads, and that is exactly what this is. So if you've never checked out Disfear, I strongly recommend checking out their last one, Live the Storm, is absolutely incredible. I love this one too. I like Live the Storm a little bit more, but if you see this, definitely pick it up. If you love crust punk, there's a good chance you may have heard of this band, but if not, I strongly recommend checking this out. Check out any of their albums, but this is pure fun, and you'll want to start a mosh pit in your house. So yeah, that should be incentive enough. Check it out. Electric Wizard, Come My Fanatics. This was the only one I was missing, and I didn't realize it until after I did the Doom Metal underrated video. I noticed, like, oh yeah, I am missing that one, so ordered it up. And this is their second album, and this represented probably one of the biggest shifts in their sound. The debut was definitely more straightforward Doom. This shifted right to the fuzz. This is where things got, well, very electric wizardy. Loads of hissing feedback and droning guitars. Like, this is where they really embraced the murky atmosphere that these guys love to create on pretty much every album. This is also way more atmospheric, just in terms of like more experimental tracks, like Evixor B Phase Inducer. That is just one trippy, like, kind of like 60s sci-fi sound effects mixed in with stoner guitars. There's also like 60s beatnik movie samples in here too, or at least that's what it seemed like it was. Really love this album. This is just absolutely nasty and very immersive. Like, you can really just kind of zone out to this sort of thing, which I believe this is exactly what it was designed for. Definitely check this out if you've never heard it. If you're looking for something to get lost in while maybe imbibing with a little bit of the jazz cabbage, this, or literally any of their albums. But yeah, this one. Start here. Why not? Check it out. Detest, A Moment of Love. This EP came out in 2019 on Dark Symphonies and Dark Descent, kind of a joint release there. This band had been around since like the 90s, but this is the first I'd ever heard of them. And this is just straight up nasty, thrashy, chuggy death metal from Denmark. Reminds me a lot of Blood Red Throne in terms of just tons of palm-muted chugs, but the thing that really kind of differentiates them from Blood Red Throne is the vocals. The vocals are frantic, kind of feral sounding, like lots of just nasty screams, and it's kind of animalistic, really. But they're a little muffled. Now, I kind of like the fact that they blend like a more like Floridian style of death metal with elements of brutal death, so you get like some kind of more slammy breakdowns. Not necessarily full-on slam breakdowns, but they kind of get slam-ish, we'll call it that. But for the most part, you get a lot of stuff that sounds like Cannibal Corpse too. So this is a solid EP. It isn't too short too, which is generally a complaint I have about EPs just being, you know, just a little snippet. This actually has, I believe, about 30 minutes worth of material, so that's pretty good. Definitely check this out though. I mean, if you're looking for something that is just balls to the wall, heavier than hell, definitely check this out. This was really cool. I'm gonna look up some of their older albums and see if I can find a decent price on them, because the one that I was looking at, which was their only full length, I believe, was pretty pricey, but we'll try our luck. Either way, definitely check this one out. Disgusted Geist, Reign of Enthrallment. This is their debut full-length. This is a California-based Death Doom band, and this is actually a re-release. I believe this came out earlier in 2018 and then was picked up by the Horror Dimension / Pathologically Explicit Recordings and then re-released later. And this is Death Doom, though I think it leads a little bit more towards death metal. There's a lot of up-tempo material in here, and generally when I hear more up-tempo material on a Death Doom album, I think it's a little bit more towards old school death metal. You do get some like more doom-laden breaks, but for the most part it kind of sticks to like autopsy worship. There's a lot of D beats, lots of real murky production. The vocals are pretty decent, kind of like frantic barking mostly, but I kind of like that because it kind of reminds me of Chris Ryford a bit, and he's just exceptional at what he does. Love the production on here. I think everything sounds great. It's as murky as it should sound, but it's well mixed. Everything's clearly separated and very groove laden, very riff laden too. Like there are some killer hooks on here with those creepy, murky melodies. Definitely embodies the Doom side there. In terms of like more modern bands, or at least bands from the Pacific Coast that sound similar, I'd say it's somewhere between Mortiferum and Witch Vomit. It definitely has like Witch Vomit's more straightforward death metal sound and kind of just loose and fun. But you also get like Mortiferum's more Death Doom side too, and those guys know how to write killer stuff as well. Definitely check this one out though. I picked this up on a whim just because the cover was kind of cool, and did not disappoint. This is absolutely killer stuff, and I'm looking for more by these guys whenever that happens. So yeah, definitely check this out. Generation of Vipers, Howl and Filth. This came out in 2012. This is this band's third album, and this is, I guess, progressive sludge / post-hardcore / post-metal. Either way, whatever you want to call it, it's really, really good. This heavily reminded me of Cult of Luna, and I absolutely love Cult of Luna, and you bet we're going to review the new album when it comes out. But it has all those post-metal elements, but it's very heavy, it's very sludgy. The bass sounds really nasty and dirty on here, as well as the guitars. But these guys are great at the tension build, which is a really cool post-metal trait. Keep kind of breaking down the song and then building it back up. Excellent at it. I had never heard of this band before. I picked it up because it was on Translation Lost Records, and I like a lot of their stuff. And this was a nice little $4 pickup in the used bin, and it's absolutely killer, and I need to find more of their stuff. Lots of extra percussion on here too. Not a lot of vocals. The vocals are kind of used more sparingly, but that's not really a complaint. The vocals are good, but I like the fact that this is more about the music. The songs are longer, they're more drawn out, but they don't lose any interest. They just kind of keep building and just keep getting heavier and more intense. I don't know, I just love this album. This was really, really solid, and unfortunately the adhesive sticker really stuck on there pretty good. But either way, I'm glad I picked this up. This was an awesome find, and I strongly recommend you guys check it out. Hive. This is the debut EP from this New Jersey blackened melodic death metal progressive. I don't know, this is just an awesome band. They're super heavy. It's really kind of hard to peg what their sound is, but I would say you could definitely compare them to Opeth and Black Crown Initiative, because very, very, very similar. Now, this originally came out in 2015, self-release, and then this is the recent reissue of it through Willowtip, which is where they are now. Their full length that came out, I believe last year, was absolutely killer. Just a sweet album. Now, this is not too far removed, though. I think they kind of labored the more Opeth-ish sound, like lots of stuff in here that remind me of, like, you know, Watershed and Ghost Reveries especially. The song structure is very similar, but it's really good. It doesn't feel like they're just straight up lifting songs from Opeth. They were a clear influence, and man, these guys really took to it. The lead work is crisp, the vocals are great. This guy definitely has the Ockerfeld roar that we don't hear anymore. At least someone's doing it. Lots of clean guitar passages on here, and this is a long EP. Now granted, I believe they threw on one bonus track from the original. It still would be a long EP regardless. It'd still be like around a half an hour, so that's a pretty solid EP. In fact, there's a lot of full lengths that aren't that long. Great stuff. I absolutely love this band. I look forward to future releases from them because that full length was absolutely incredible. This is also absolutely incredible. If you have yet to jam anything by this band, this isn't a bad place to start. I'd still say jam their full length too. Jam both. They're both really good. But yeah, this absolutely incredible stuff. Opeth fans, Black Crown Initiate fans, definitely check them out. Lesa, Humanidad, Hegemonia, Perversa. And this came out in 2018, and I believe the band's name actually means it hurts humanity in Spanish. But either way, this band is from Argentina. This is their second full-length album, and this is, I guess, brutal death metal, maybe more straightforward death metal. The vocals scream brutal death metal, and unfortunately, they're not very good on here. It's kind of a pig shriek. I don't know if it's really like a pig squeal, but it's not a very good growl. But man, the musicianship is really tight on here. Like, this is very much the realm of like monstrosity, malevolent creation, deicide. Like, it has that thrashy Floridian sound, loads of killer leads, great breakdowns on here. The breakdowns almost kind of sound more Dying Fetus-ish. That's a term. It is now, whatever. The music is good enough for me to get past the vocals. I actually really enjoyed a large part of it. Though the vocals are very out in front, they're kind of hard to miss, but the riff work, the drum work is on point, even though the drums aren't recorded particularly well. It's a rough recording, but it's still okay for what they're going for. And this is reissued through Severed Records and Rotten Cemetery Records. But this was also released on Grindr, I can't pronounce that word, Records, and Total Noise Records. So a lot of different labels thrown on here, but pretty solid stuff. I just kind of picked this one up on a whim. I looked at the cover. I like the fact that it was hand-painted versus like some CGI art, and the logo didn't look like a slam band. So I kind of took a gamble on it. I'm not the biggest Slam fan, but this was actually pretty decent. I'd definitely be down for checking out more releases by these guys. Hopefully the vocals have improved, but if not, you know, as long as they stick with a killer songwriting, I would definitely check them out again. So yeah, definitely check them out. Cadaveric Fumes, Forsaken Triptych. Now this is a compilation of demos, EPs, split EP appearances from this French death metal band, and this is really cool, like raw, nasty, old school death metal. There's actually a member of Necrotic on here, which is a really cool blackened death metal band, but this is more straightforward death metal, still with a lot of atmosphere. It's very just kind of creepy sounding. The transitions pretty much from the demo quality stuff to the EP, more mastered stuff, it's notable. The demo, though, I think it sounds really good. It's still very raw sounding, but it still sounds really good, and the songwriting I think is top notch on here. But honestly, I do prefer the more mastered stuff. It's still gritty, it's just better mixed. The one thing I thought that really stood out here was on some of the later tracks, they have some creepy synth intros, but honestly, the first thing I could think of was like music by Tangerine Dream. Like, it's that kind of synth work. And it kind of reminded me of that movie, The Keep, which I don't know if anyone's ever seen that movie. It's a weird, almost horror movie, kind of horror movie. It's strange. Watch it. It's weird. But it has that interesting feel to it just in terms of the synth lead-ins, and it's kind of a contrast in terms of the music, but I really like that part. Either way, I definitely want to check out more by this band. I just kind of picked this up on a whim, and it was worth it. Came out on Blood Harvest, by the way, which is an awesome label. Strongly recommend checking out pretty much anything they put out. But yeah, definitely check this out. It's good stuff. Countless Skies, Glow. This is their second album. Came out on Willowtip Records, and I may have missed one that could have potentially been on my year-end list, because this is some flat-out epic, I would say progressive melodic death metal. This is pretty much like a meeting of Insomnium, Dark Tranquility, and Devin Townsend. These guys love big epic vocals, lush layering. We have keys, we have cellos, we have vocal choirs, which sound absolutely angelic. The contrast between that and the heavier material with the harsher vocals, I absolutely love that. They have a great Beauty and the Beast dynamic. And the songwriting on here is absolutely fantastic. Just hook after hook. Everything is huge. Like, nothing sounds as though they weren't shooting for something epic and memorable, which I'm definitely going to be jamming this a lot. This was really good. The three-part last track, Glow, the title track, is immense. It is everything you would want out of a giant three-part epic song. Massive shifts in dynamics, great balance between clean and harsh vocals, loads of just beautiful instrumentation. This is absolutely killer. It's lush and it's kind of pretty. I guess that's an odd thing to say about a metal album, but it is. It's a pretty album. It's as beautiful as this album cover. Absolutely love this. Strongly recommend checking them out. I definitely want to try to find their first album. It was on a different label, but maybe Willowtip will reissue it. I don't know. Either way, definitely check this out. This was one I possibly missed. It could have been on my list. I don't know. Check it out, though. Cro-Mags In the Beginning. This is their first album in 20 years. And by there, I mean Mike Flanagan. John Joseph is nowhere to be found on here. And if anyone doesn't know why, there was a large legal dispute. And pretty much they both have their own version of Cro-Mags. Flanagan won the rights to use just Cro-Mags. And then John Joseph and Mackie Jason, I believe, have Cro-Mags JM, standing for both of their names. So that was finally settled, and then I guess Mike Flanagan got back to work and wrote a badass hardcore album. This is straightforward hardcore. None of the crossover elements are there. I kind of miss that. I like the more crossover years of Cro-Mags, but I still like the hardcore and stuff. And these guys were immensely influential across the board. Pretty much every hardcore band that came after them probably listened to these guys. For a 20-year break, this is a pretty solid album. It's pretty much straight up I'll fight you music. And I believe them. They all still look like they could whoop the shit out of me. It's Cro-Mags. I mean, they're primal, they are heavy, they're in your face, it's New York hardcore. I wish Ren was here to say that part because he does it a lot better. But yeah, if you like Cro-Mags, definitely pick this up. It's a fun return. Mr. Bungle. Disco Volante. This is the only Bungle I was missing, and Jesus Christ, this is one of the weirdest ones I think they've done. But they're all weird. Well, maybe minus the new one, but that's still weird for Bungle to be so not Bungle. Anyway, this is just flat out strange music. If you've never heard Mr. Bungle, I don't know where to tell you to start. But if you have, you know what this sounds like. It's weird. It's literally everything plus a bad acid trip. Swing, metal, punk, avant-garde, weirdness, Mike Pat crooning, and then, well, kind of groaning like an old man. If you've never heard Carry Stress in the Jaw, then yeah, that's the one to jam on here, just to hear Mike Patton sound like an old man. At least I think it's Mike Patton. I would assume it's Mike Patton. That guy can sound like anyone he wants to. That is such a wild, crazy song, which again kind of covers everything they do, but this is just a nuts album. Once again, I needed to get it just so I can kind of complete the run of Mr. Bungle, and yeah, it's Mr. Bungle. I mean, I really can't say much else to describe this other than it is Bungle. So yeah, if you've never jammed any Mr. Bungle, I don't know if this is the place to start, but I don't know where to start really with them. Just do it. Just do it and get nuts with these guys. And finally we have Voidceremony, Foul Origins of Humanity. This is their third EP. Came out on Blood Harvest, or at least re-released through Blood Harvest. I don't know. Blood Harvest does a lot of re-releases. This may have originally came out on Blood Harvest. Came out in 2017. We reviewed their last full length, which had an absurdly long title, and I can't remember it offhand. But this is absolutely nuts, technical, maybe progressive, maybe blackened death metal. It is insane sounding. Kind of comparable to maybe a little bit of like the newer Gorgut stuff, though maybe not that nuts. But a lot of stuff in here reminds me of Immolation in terms of the riff structure, in terms of how crazy it sounds. The songwriting is just nuts and fiercely technical, but still has room for a lots of hooks and really interesting dissonant melodies. Now, honestly, I like the mix on this one a little bit better than the full length that came out. I think everything sort of stands out a little bit more. It sounds heavier too. And the vocals are a little bit more out in front, so it's not this big reverb-drenched groan or growl in the background. There are a little bit more vocal dynamics, at least. Like he shortens up the growls a little bit. They sound a little bit more aggressive in spots. Really enjoyed this. I really enjoy this band, and I need to actually find the other two EPs for sure. If you're looking for a place to start with them, this might be a good place to start, just because I think this is maybe a little bit more accessible than the newest album. But either way, it's still going to be really technical and nuts sounding, so I don't know if accessible is the right word. Either way, jam it, because it's good. Check it out. All right, that knocks out another large stack. I forgot how large this was until I actually looked at it and was like, wow, this is a lot of stuff. But I'm still waiting on stuff to show up. I mean, there's stuff that I ordered forever ago, and of course, you know, mail's running slow because everyone's catching up with holiday stuff, but it'll get here, and when it does, I will definitely go over it. But either way, we're looking at throwing a lot of cool stuff out for this year. We want to just keep, you know, throwing out tons of stuff for you guys to check out because there's loads of kick-ass metal out there. And we want to try to cover as much of it as possible. So if you enjoyed this video, give it a thumbs up, and if you are new to the channel, subscribe because we do stuff like this all the time. We will catch you later.